What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Jungle Cup using a double buffed Shadow Camerupt, which gained access to both Scorching Sands and Rock Tomb this season, which are also both of its cheapest charge moves. So prior to this season, you could actually never double up on charge attacks, which made this Pokemon really hard to use. Also, Rock Tomb gives it very much needed flying type coverage in the meta where the likes of Talonflame and Altaria previously would have completely walled this Pokemon. I'm pairing it with the buffed Shadow Gyarados on Twister, as well as Shadow Menace, which was not buffed this season, but got two huge buffs last season with both Powder Snow and Icicle Spear. With that being said, let's just get straight into the question of the day. What do you think is the most underrated Pokemon in the Jungle Cup meta? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Shadow Gyarados into Dunsparce. So not a great matchup for me. I will be swapping out into my Mamoswine, and because I swap out straight away, I can actually outpace and go straight for Icicle Spear. This is also throwing on good timing because it takes one turn to swap out, and then of course it takes 10 turns to throw fast moves, and one more turn to throw the charge move. The opponent going to go for a drill run there, grab a shield back from me, and now we're going to go for another Icicle Spear. Now of course, Icicle Spear is hitting very hard with the Powder Snow damage adding up over time as well. The opponent going to fire for the charge move, and they actually full send a superpower, which they certainly didn't need to do, but now we can come in with a Shadow Gyarados, outpace, and an Aqua Tail should be enough damage to get the KO. Aqua Tail gonna be no shielded, it gets the KO, and now I'm gonna swap catch the charge move, but as I love to do with Dragon Breath users and Incinerate users, I swap one turn early, we get the Incinerate through on the swap, and the opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Noctowl. Of course, Noctowl did get buffed this season, with, of course, Wing Attack being restored to what it used to be. However, we've got Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb gonna hit for super effective damage. It debuffs their attack stat as well. Rock Tomb number 2 is gonna get the KO there. I'm gonna swap back into Gyarados, couple of Dragon Breaths, farms down the Dunsparce, and I'm able to take that game. So, GC's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see another Dunsparce in the lead. So once again, going to be swapping out straight away into my Shadow Mamoswine, and this time met with a Talonflame, which, of course, not ideal for me. However, the opponent is about to realize that they need to shield the Talonflame. Just neutral damage from Powder Snows and Icicle Spears is enough damage to take out the Talonflame, which is huge for me. Not only that, we get to another Icicle Spear up against the Dunsparce. However, unfortunately, they do get a huge roll-up farm down. Now, of course, Rock Slide isn't going to do as much damage up against Gyarados compared to a drill run up against my Shadow Camerupt, so I do come in with the Gyarados, and that does allow me to reach a last second charge move. Now the opponent is going to throw straight away, but we get the Incinerate through. Incinerate should get the KO here, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Rangaroo. So this is still going to be a very close matchup here. Rock Tomb gonna grab the final shield. It debuffs their attack stat, but they can actually outpace me to back-to-back Brutal Swings. I shield the first one here, as this will force them to throw a second charge move, but can I live this? We debuff them, Brutal Swing doesn't get the KO, and now I can go straight for Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands will be taking out the Orangaroo, and I'm able to take that game. So, GC's opponent there into the next battle. We see Gyarados into a Shadow Quillfish. So, a bit of an awkward matchup here for both sides, really. We can't, well, I was going to say we can't go for Aqua Tail, but actually, never mind. We are going to go for an Aqua Tail bait. Aqua Tail is going to be shielded, and now I'm actually going to call a bait on the opponent's end. However, the opponent full sends the Ice Beam. That easily gets the KO up against the Gyarados. Now, of course, I'm definitely going to have to shield my Mamoswine. The opponent fires off the Aqua Tail. I actually don't know who wins CMP in this matchup, so I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to throw on CMP instead. Going to overfarm just a little bit, get the KO with the Icicle Spear. The opponent comes in with a Shadow Piloswine, but I certainly know I win CMP in this matchup, so I throw after 5 more Powder Snows. We grab the final shield, and at this point I'm trusting one shield and a Shadow Camerupt can sweep the backline. Now the opponent gonna stay in with the Piloswine, and that is a huge mistake as they don't even reach another charge move. Their final Pokemon gonna be a Shadow Gligar. We go straight for Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb does big damage, it drops their attack stat, and I can just safely shield here. The next Incinerate will register. It will be taking out the Shadow Gligar, and I'm able to take that game. So, GC's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Credilli in the lead. I'm going to swap out here. I actually don't know why I threw a Dragon Breath first. I shouldn't have done that. I think I was expecting maybe Acid Credilli, but they're on Bullet Seed. They swap that. They end up shielding a charge move from the Mamoswine, but we reach a second Icicle Spear here, and we've already seen this. Icicle Spear is enough damage to KO a Talonflame. That is huge for me. We're still in a bit of an awkward situation here, so I'm going to come back in with my Shadow Gyarados. Of course, they will reach a charge move here. However, I should be able to CMP tie them with the next Rock Tomb. So I shield the first. I'm going to throw the Octail on CMP technically. Maybe should have gone for Twister just to guarantee slightly more damage in this matchup since I was debuffed. However, the opponent is going to double shield, in which case I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I'm now going to look to overfarm. I'm going to throw as late as possible here. Octail will be enough damage to get the KO despite being double debuffed. And their final Pokemon going to be Unova and Sunfisk. And you know what? We might as well. We're going to catch a double resisted discharge onto Shadow Camerupt, which also allows me to get Incinerate through as I swap out. And now we can outpace to the Scorching Sands, winning CMP. Scorching Sands, super effective. It takes out the Stunfisk, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into next battle. We see Pangoro in the lead. So this is going to be a slightly positive matchup for us. However, they can just barely outpace us to the first charge move. They go for... Okay, that is a huge mistake on my end. I'll be honest, I was not expecting Water Gun Lantern. It seems like Water Gun is probably the preferred move in this meta, or at least it's the more common move in this meta for Lantern. I didn't realize that. I thought it was a Spark Lantern, so I swap out straight away into Camerupt, and that is one of the worst things you can do, is bring a Camerupt into a Pokemon with a Water Fast move. But anyways, we are still not in a good position as I come in with my Mamoswine here. I'm going to shield this, and then swap back into Gyarados. I realize Mamoswine pretty useless up against Pangoro, but if we do have some energy, then I guess we can still threaten shields, or maybe get a KO. Now they're going to come in with a Crustle. I'm going to go straight for Octail. Octail is going to grab the final shield, but they can Fury Cut to farm me down. Now I'm going to look to throw as late as possible here. Icicle Spear is not enough damage to get the KO. They swap back into Pangoro, and we can at least reach another Icicle Spear. However, I do believe Crustle has a charge move loaded, in which case, unfortunately, they can just throw straight away. And of course, X-Scissor takes out the Shadow Mamoswine, and I end up losing that game. But certainly, if I had just looked at the fast move there, should have just stayed in with my Shadow Gyarados. I will say Water Gun Lantern is a little bit tricky, especially if they're able to farm down one of the back Pokemon, because, of course, its energy threatens the entire team. But actually, Shadow Gyarados has a pretty decent matchup if they are on Water Gun. Anyways, I'm going to shield here as the opponent farms up to the Blizzard, and they full send the Blizzard. Now I can massively overfarm. I farm up to back-to-back Octails. Technically, could have farmed even more than this, but either way, Octail gets the KO, and they're going to come in with a Ferrothorn. Now, of course, this isn't a great matchup for me. However, Mamoswine is going to outpace them now to the next charge move. So if they want to keep their Ferrothorn alive, they're actually going to have to double shield here. So Icicle Spear, number one, grabs the first shield. I mean, I guess Icicle Spear maybe won't quite get the KO, but either way, it is going to grab both shields from the opponent. Now, they do overfarm a little bit here, but that's okay. Of course, we've got Shadow Camerupt in the back. Incinerate is going to do huge damage in this matchup, so the opponent is going to back the energy. They swap into Altaria, but that's fine with me. We can go straight for Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb, super effective, drops their attack stat. We swap into Gyarados, and the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's opponent there into next battle. We're going to see Clodsire in the lead. So this is going to be a sort of decent matchup for me, as I can very comfortably outpace them to the Octail here. However, I'm actually going to swap into my Shadow Mamoswine. Now, it is sort of an ABB style team. We've got two ground-type Pokemon in the back. However, of course, Mamoswine and Camerupt do beat sort of fairly different things. Either way, they're going to come in with Drapion, and Drapion is actually quite tricky for this team to deal with, just because, like I mentioned, I do have two ground types in the back. However, they don't have ground-type coverage, except for kind of high energy charge moves. So at this point, we're going to go for another Icicle Spear. Icicle Spear is going to grab a shield. I try to swap and catch an Octail, does not work out for me, and the opponent overfarms a little bit. Crunch gets the KO, and now I am in real trouble here. I need to put them into range where hopefully one Incinerate will get the farm down, but I don't think they're quite in that range just yet. So the opponent goes for Aquatail. It gets the KO. Of course, Aquatail double super effective into Shadow Camerupt. However, the opponent swaps into Cordeli. Now, this doesn't really help me that much anyways, as they can go straight for Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb doesn't quite KO, but I'm going to farm up to back-to-back Scorching Sands, and you're going to see, because they debuff me, that actually also doesn't quite KO either, and as a result, of course, Rock Tomb takes out the Shadow Camerupt, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. So, GG's opponent there into next battle. We're going to see Crustle in the lead. So this is going to be a positive matchup for me if they are on Fury Cutter, which of course they are. We're going to go for an Aquatail. I do overfarm just slightly here. Aquatail is going to be shielded, and now I'm definitely just going to match shields. The opponent is going to go and full send a Rock Wrecker before swapping into Licky Licky. I'm going to go and chip with an Octail and then swap into my Shadow Mamoswine, where I should be able to tank any one charge move. However, if they full send a Shadow Ball, as you're going to see, it does huge damage, and it will force me to throw pretty much straight away. Now, the opponent is going to my surprise, shield that up there. They do have some energy, so I'm actually going to come in with the Shadow Gyarados, hopefully just force them to throw the energy pretty much straight away, and the opponent is going to do that. However, unfortunately, they're still going to reach another charge move into my Shadow Camerupt, which isn't really ideal. However, this should just be another Body Slam, so I'm going to no shield. Body Slam still does decent damage. They come back in with the Crustle, and I'm actually not going to throw the charge move here, instead opting for the extra Incinerate damage, as the opponent allows a full farm down. We've got 100 energy, and their final Pokemon is a Piloswine. So I go for Rock Tomb first. That, well, it looks like 2 Rock Tombs would KO, but Scorching Sands gonna do more damage anyways. It takes out the Piloswine, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see a Lantern in the lead. So this time, I'm definitely going to stay in and wait to see what fast move it is, and it is Water Gun. So actually, I don't mind this matchup at all. We've got Dragon Breaths, we've got Twister. We're hitting for quite decent neutral damage here, and you're going to see we actually grab a shield. The opponent just barely going to outpace me to the next charge move. The opponent going to bait with a Surf. However, we are so spammy with the Shadow Gyarados, that bait doesn't really help them that much, as we can go for another Twister. Twister grabs the final shield, and we're already at yet another Twister. Twister does this KO. It barely doesn't, but we can just Dragon Breath farm them down anyways. That is huge from the Shadow Gyarados. I'm now going to swap into Mamoswine. The opponent not going straight for Seed Bomb. Big mistake. Icicle Spear gets the KO, especially since they've got Altaria in the back, and this is going to be a very comfortable sweep for the Shadow Mamoswine. Camerupt can have the battle off. Icicle Spear gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Shadow Gyarados into Fortress. Now, in the Ultra League that I've played recently, every Fortress is on Volt Switch. However, in this meta, it seems like Bug Bite is definitely the preferred move to go for, which means it's actually not that bad for the Gyarados, and actually we do win this in the one shield scenario. So the opponent is going to go straight for Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb, of course, going to debuff my attack stat. However, Dragon Breaths, they're already resisted. They're not dealing too much damage. It is the Octail spam that is the real threat, and the opponent just going to no shield. But once again, they're going to come in with a Drapion, a Pokemon that, especially since I'm so low on Gyarados and I am debuffed here, this is going to be quite a problematic Pokemon to deal with. We're going to go for another Octail. Octail is going to get them very low, so I swap into my Mamoswine. Maybe that is a mistake here, as I'm going to no-shield this. They go for Crunch, not Aquatail, but their final Pokemon is Altaria, and at this point, I'm thinking, man, I wish I just fully sacrificed the Camerupt here. Of course, in hindsight, it's easy to say that, but I guess having Fortress in the lead, they probably had a very good answer to Fire types in the back. Like the Altaria that we're seeing right here. Of course, I can still go for Rock Tomb, debuff their attack stat. However, Shadow Camerupt is very glassy. That debuff to their attack stat, whilst it might just barely allow me to live a Sky Attack, it's not going to help me too much, as the opponent can just Dragon Breath farm down. I thought the opponent might swap out there into their Drapion, but they don't. Instead, they just Dragon Breath farm down the rest of my team, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's opponent there into the next battle. I'm going to see a Gyarados mirror match. So, since I'm a Shadow, and since you can see I don't have the best IVs, I thought I'd win CMP here. However, I do not. So, I no-shield the first. They go for Twister. I'm actually baiting with an Aquatail. Aquatail going to be shielded, and now I'm swapping into my Shadow Mamoswine. Of course, they will outpace me to the Aquatail here, but that's okay with me. I'm going to shield this. I'm now going to look to overfarm in this matchup, and then fire off the Icicle Spear. Icicle Spear is definitely going to get the KO, so the opponent is actually going to use the final shield there. And I'm actually happy to use my final shield as well. I don't think one Incinerate would KO there, so that would have been useless if I let it go down and tried to come back in with my Camerupt. But now they come in with a Wigglytuff. High Horsepower gets the one shot there. They're going to come in with a Swalot. I'm coming in with my Shadow Camerupt and Mudshots. They're hitting for super effective damage, but it doesn't matter. The opponent actually trying to farm up to back-to-back charge moves. They actually just don't throw at all. Incinerate does actually take out the Gyarados, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We see Greninja in the lead. So this is definitely where we want to see it. Of course, Camerupt wants nothing to do with Greninja at all, as Water Shurikens would shred through our HP. They bait with a Night Slash. That's fine with me. I'm actually not baiting this time. Full sending Twister, and Twister not going to be shielded. It gets the KO. They come in with a Murkrow, and again, they're going to have a Talonflame in the back. However, this time, I do expect them to shield this. Icicle Spear is going to grab a shield, and Gyarados, I believe, does have a charge move loaded, so I think I might just throw immediately here as we come in with the Gyarados. It is, oh, never mind, we do not have the charge move. I think I'm thinking of a different battle. Either way, I'm actually just going to no-shield this, hoping Camerupt with 2 shields can sweep this game. So the opponent is going to go for a fly. They're now going to swap back into their Murkrow as they realize they would be fully farmed down. But that's okay. We've now got easily enough energy to outpace them. This is a CMP tie. Rock Tomb will be grabbing the final shield. And now I can outpace the Murkrow to the next Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb, of course, super effective damage. It will be taking out the Glassy Murkrow. And then one more Incinerate, farms down the Talonflame. And I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see Shadow Ferrothorn in the lead. So, not a great matchup for me. Again, I don't know why I throw a few Dragon Breaths before swapping out. I should swap out straight away there. And that way, I would outpace to the first charge move. But I'm going to shield here. The opponent going to stay in with the Ferrothorn, which is fine with me, I guess. And now, I'm going to go for an Icicle Spear. Icicle Spear is going to be shielded, and because this is Shadow on Shadow, this will definitely get the KO. So, the opponent is going to use their final shield. At this point, they cannot farm me down, so they're forced to throw. They're in range where, of course, one Incinerate easily gets the farm down. So the opponent is going to bank some energy. I believe they are 1 away from the next charge move, and unfortunately, they still barely outpace the Camerupt to a foul play. So I'm actually just going to bank all of that energy. Going to look to overfarm as much as possible, which unfortunately isn't that much, but Arquetel gets the KO. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Toxapex, and now this is looking a little bit tricky for me. Of course, if they're able to land a Brine up against the Camerupt, that is an easy one-shot, as it is double super effective. So here, I'm going to go for back-to-back Twisters. I'm getting the opponent incredibly low, to the point where a single Incinerate, well actually just even a charge move being shielded there would KO. But I make a huge mistake. I was thinking they're going to swap out straight away, so what I don't want to do is allow them to get to the charge move on the Ferrothorn, but if they swapped out there, that takes 1 turn, 3 turns for the Bullet Seed. They wouldn't get off the charge move if I just went for the Incinerate there, so I should have committed to the farm down. That is my bad, but the opponent's able to capitalize on my mistake and take that game. So GG's to that trainer into the next battle. Gonna see another Fortress, and again, they're on Bug Bite, so this is a pretty comfortable matchup for the Gyarados. Of course, I would prefer my Camerupt to be aligned in this matchup, but either way, that's okay. But this time, I do have to be wary. They should have answers to fire types in the back, so maybe saving my Camerupt for the end game isn't the best idea. Anyways, we get the farm down. I'm going to swap into my Mamoswine, and the opponent's going to come in with a Shadow Talonflame. Shadow on Shadow, they should definitely be shielding in this matchup, and they're going to do exactly that. I believe maybe this is the battle that I was thinking of, where I already have the Arquetel loaded, so the opponent has a charge move already. I'm going straight for the Arquetel, able to win CMP in this matchup, and of course, Arquetel is going to grab the final shield. I'm also going to shield this, as I should outpace to the next move. However, the opponent will be able to swap back into Licky Licky, and so I'm able to swap into my Shadow Camerupt. The opponent doesn't throw on the best timing, allowing a full Incinerate through. Shadow Ball doesn't get the KO there, and now I'm going for Scorching Sands. Honestly, I would prefer if this doesn't KO, and it actually does the perfect amount of damage, puts them into 1 Dragon Breath farm down range. I believe Gyarados is 1 Dragon Breath away from the Arquetel, so that farm down allows me to come out with the Arquetel loaded, and of course, it takes out the Shadow Talonflame, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up there into the next battle. Going to see a Galarian Stunfisk in the lead. So, I can outpace them by a single turn here. Going straight for the Arquetel, which is going to hit for super effective damage. And it does do big damage. I'm now going to swap into Shadow Mamoswine. The opponent farms up to a potential Earthquake. So, I'm just going to respect it. They bait with a Rock Slide. That's fine with me. They can fire off another Rock Slide. I'm just committing to a full Powder Snow farm down, as I will come out with quite a lot of energy. I'm going straight for Icicle Spear here. Icicle Spear is going to do decent damage. It will two-shot a Corviknight, and we're going to throw another one straight away. Icicle Spear, number 2, gonna grab a shield, and it's actually a CMP tire, which is huge for me, as the opponent not committing to the farm down. They undercharge there, but it doesn't matter. Camerupt able to snipe with the Incinerate damage. Their final Pokemon is Altaria, and now I'm going for the Rock Tomb. Of course, Rock Tomb gonna hit for super effective damage. It does huge damage in the process. And at this point, I don't even need to shield my Camerupt. Gyarados is still pretty healthy, so we're going to come in, Dragon Breath, farm down the Altaria. There's nothing they can do there, so we're not going to bother throwing a Charge Move. We can Dragon Breath, farm down the Stunfisk as well, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there, into the next battle, we're going to see another Lantern in the lead. So once again, we're going to wait to see what fast move they've got. I believe it's probably Water Gun, otherwise they would not be swapping out of that matchup into Gyarados. They're going to swap into Licky Licky. Now, this is quite problematic for me, because I'm going to need switch advantage, because I cannot allow Camerupt to be aligned to the Lantern. However, I also can't really afford to be all shields down, because Thunderbolt will easily take out my Gyarados. So I probably should have just full sent a high horsepower there, but either way, we're full sending it this time around. This is going to guarantee a shield, and now I'm swapping back into my Gyarados. Of course, all shields are down on my end, so I'm hoping the opponent will just stay in this matchup, and the opponent is doing exactly that. Not only that, I'm able to force a CMP tie with the next Twister. Twister, gotta be no-shielded, and that is big for my Camerupt. Of course, if they shield there, I have no way of taking out the Lantern, whereas now I assume they're going to swap out straight away, but it just depends what their final Pokemon is, and unfortunately, it's Pangoro. I tried to catch a Charge Move there, tried to catch Close Combat, does not work out for me as they had no reason to throw. So at this point, the opponent can full send, Close Combat gets the KO, and I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the final battle of this video, leading into another Piloswine. So I am going to stay in this matchup initially. Gonna go for an Octel. Octel, we can just barely outpace them to that first Charge Move. And now I'm actually going to swap into my Mamoswine. Now, because we swapped there, we're actually able to get a 0-turn swap, which means I'm now going to be ahead on energy up against the Piloswine, which means I can overfarm by 1 more Powder Snow. Powder Snow coming through. Sorry, Icicle Spear gets the KO there. They're going to come in with a Crustle, and we're going to throw on CMP once again. The opponent is going to throw straight away again, so this means Icicle Spear going to do huge damage. I'm going to no-shield this, and I'm hoping Camerupt can sweep this game. Going to come in with it straight away. Their final Pokemon is Shadow Toucannon, and yes, we've got Rock Tomb coverage, but we don't need it in this matchup. Incinerate's dealing huge damage here. 4 Incinerates takes out the Toucannon. We can Incinerate, farm down the Crustle, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.